demonic entity follows you through crowded alleys and nightclubs, never slowing down, never stopping to rest, until it catches you and kills you in the most horrific way. This is the story of Crowded Followed, which revolves around a horrifying entity following the victim, who can only be seen by the victim and no one else. Hi folks, I'm R, your narrator, and welcome to a unique horror game which follows a similar plot to some of my favorite movies, which are bone-chilling. The story begins when a homeless man picks up his medical bill, which happens to be over 200,000 British pounds. The bill suggests that the protagonist was diagnosed with emphysema and stayed over in the hospital for 2 weeks. Wherever this place is, it could be taking place in an alternate universe, as the healthcare is free in United Kingdom, which the currency of is British pounds. Sitting in a crowded place, watching people pass him by as if he is invisible, the protagonist manages to collect some change, with another day yet again passing by. Using his inhaler as he suffers from emphysema, suffering from shortness of breath, he cozies up to a campfire as the night gets pretty cold. Contemplating on his life, sad and disappointed how his life turned out to be, he tries to stay optimistic that things will get better. Deep in his thoughts, thinking of better days to come, he hears gunshots from a nearby alley, being a common occurrence now in this time of night. He quickly rushes towards the source of the sound when he sees a man badly wounded, yet being still alive. There's a strange looking briefcase next to him with a chain wrapped around it and a note warning others not to open it as there's death inside. Here, the protagonist has the choice to help this wounded man with the strange looking briefcase, or just to simply leave and not to get himself involved. Deciding to help this man, he goes on saying strange things.
You listen. You've got to take this. There's a ferry leaving the city midnight tonight. Make sure you're on it. Don't let it take the case. And don't bother trying to open it. It's sealed shut for a reason. This thing, it takes the form of others. I'm sorry. It's here. We can only see it now. You need to get out of here.
The homeless man gazes up on the large, terrifying woman entity who slowly walks towards him, having no expression on her face and having blood stains and smudges over her clothes. Just the sight of this woman makes the protagonist start shaking, having uncontrollable tremors, with this woman being extremely uncanny. The wounded man tells him to run, which he does without any further question. By this point, the homeless man seems to be cursed, taking the briefcase in his hand. Some sort of curse seems to have transferred onto him from the wounded man, and the only way to survive seems to be to get on the ferry and leave the city, as this entity somehow and for some reason wants to get the briefcase. Not much else is known, but that's the best chance the protagonist has right now. He manages to run and go to the subway, with crowds upon crowds getting on with their daily life and paying no mind to the man, who don't seem to be able to see this woman following the homeless man. The fear takes over his entire body and mind, yet intuitively knowing that no one apart from him can see this entity, and there wouldn't be any point of telling others about it. Managing to get on the train, the man thinks that he is safe away from the woman.
Damn. Who the hell was that? I'll get off on the last stop and find somewhere to rest up for the night. What's in the case anyway? It's sealed shut. Wait, she followed me? How can no one else see it?
The man breaking into sweat, he gets off the train just to see the expressionless woman following him, even being able to shapeshift and look like others so that she can get closer to him and the briefcase. Despite being slow, this entity is steady in her pace, never stopping or slowing down, never seeming tired or even needing to sleep. The crowd doesn't seem to be able to stop her either, and she can shapeshift, making it easy for her to sneak her way to the protagonist.
That guy in the alleyway wasn't lying. This thing is real. I better get on the ferry or convince someone to take this off my hands.
Hundreds of thoughts going through his mind, with fear almost paralyzing him. He leaves the subway, going to the city in order to get on his way to the ferry. As he tries to go through an alley, he notices the police car blocking the way as there's a riot taking place. As there's a dead end with the entity behind on his tail, he is left with no other choice but to go through a crowded nightclub. The people are drunk and busy spending time mindlessly as if they have no problems, dancing their minds off, trying desperately to forget about a city that is on fire, reeking with crime and homicide. They are as clueless to this entity as they pretend to be to the filth and chaos outside. The protagonist, on the other hand, runs with his life in his hand, trying to get as far away as possible from this entity. Passing these drunk people leaving the nightclub through the fire exit, he is forced to navigate through the riot that is taking place, while the entity is just a few steps behind him, never resting or stopping, even for a second. The protagonist strangely notices some spray paints on the walls of this entity, unsure whether it is only him able to see them or if they are real. If they are real, who could be the person who painted them on the walls? On the dock, the protagonist sees the ferry being his ticket off this town and his only way of surviving the entity who never stops following him. He doesn't know if the ferry will in any way stop her, but that is the best bet that he has. The homeless man finally manages to get on the ferry and get away from this entity, who stands on the dock staring at the man while some sort of dark cloud rises from her. It seems as if she is unable to pass through water or sea, which is why the man in the alley told the homeless man to get on the ferry and to leave the city. As the sun starts rising, the homeless man looks at the briefcase, unsure what to do with it now and if this woman will still follow him or not.
I've got to decide what I'm doing with this thing. Maybe I can give it to someone, or maybe I can throw it into the water.
The first ending is short and sweet, and it takes place when the homeless man decides to not engage with the wounded man in the alley and walk away, which simply allows him to live on, not having this demonic entity follow after him. This is possibly the best ending, but yet again, we don't know what would be the consequences. The wounded man most likely will die and will be killed by the entity, while the briefcase might be passed on to someone else just to repeat the cycle, as the woman wants to get to the briefcase and who knows what she's gonna do to it. But by the looks of it, she will probably lure others to take it. The second ending is more menacing and sinister, with the homeless man willingly deciding to give the briefcase to a child who is in the ferry in front of him, as the kid would be gullible enough to take it, unlike many others whom he tried to give the briefcase to before who refused.
This briefcase is a new mystery puzzle box, kiddo. Think you can solve the mystery? Take it home and try to open it. You're not going to believe what's inside. Once you're done, make sure to pass it to someone else.
It seems as if he has fully manifested becoming a villain, becoming what this monster is, doing her bidding and spreading the curse to more people. In this ending, the man decides to do the noble and right thing and throw the briefcase into the ocean so that no one will ever have to face this curse just like he did. He doesn't know what the consequences will be, not sure if the entity will continue to follow him or not, but he knows better not to curse anyone else with this burden and monster. That's when 7 years go by, with a small family-owned fishing boat approaching the waters near where the briefcase was thrown. They throw their net to catch fish, and that's when it happens that the fisherman asks his son to pick up the briefcase and separate it from the fish, unknowingly giving him the curse of the entity, which will follow him when they are back on land. Not much can be known about the entity and her powers, but based on a couple of movies I watched called It Follows and also the movie Smile, this entity seems to be passing around and somehow infecting the victims. By the way, brilliant movies, I highly recommend them to you. The method of passing this entity to others is through willingly having someone take the briefcase, which leads to the entity following the victim. The man in the alley somehow found it or was given the briefcase by someone who ended up getting shot for unknown reasons. Regardless, the entity carried on following him until he convinced the protagonist to take the briefcase. If the plot takes inspiration from these movies, the entity would then stop following the man in the alley and exclusively only follow the new victim, the person that took the briefcase. If the new victim dies somehow or by the entity goes back to hunt and follow the previous victim. This would continue on until someone else takes the briefcase. Now, something which was interesting in the story was that the briefcase had some contents inside, which were said not to be opened and found. This could go two ways. If the carrier manages to open the briefcase somehow, this could lead to their immediate death, as the note said that there's death inside, or finding the contents of the briefcase could kill the entity and save the victims. It's not clear exactly what this will lead to, but you can share your theories and thoughts down in the comments below. And that is it for this video, folks. I truly hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to stay tuned for more by hitting on the subscribe button and the notification bell. As always, it's been your host Star, and I will see you on the next one. Have a fantastic day.